Where are you going, Master?
For a drink.
Sorry about the mess.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
As promised, joining us in the cantina, our good pal, Matt LANTER. Hello, Matt.
Hey.
Yes.
Hey, guys. Hey, guys. Always good to be back.
Hey, what have you been doing lately? Anything?
Yeah, usually I say, hey, Anakin, but this time I'm compelled to say, what up, George?
And George would say, what does what up mean? You know?
Yeah, right.
Old George.
Yeah, you know.
Old George is in
Old school
1929
George.
still. Yeah.
Well, man, we are so happy for you. Jupiter's Legacy, tearing up the charts on Netflix, the #1 show right now. Did you have a sense when you were making this, and we've talked to you since you started filming, and you said, "Yeah, I'll come back when it's on." Did you have a sense when you were making it that it was going to be something special?
Well, yeah, that was the hope. I know we've chatted multiple times, and I kind of keep telling you guys I'm doing the show, and I don't know if you believed me or not, because it's been about 2 years. But finally, I'm not a liar.
Right.
I think that I think we all hoped. I mean, we had sort of heard from our Netflix people that, this was going to be one of the big Netflix shows this year, and that they were hoping to position it in a way that it could help launch a franchise, basically. Mm-hmm. Because for those of you listening or watching that don't know, it's called Jupiter's Legacy, and it's basically Netflix's answer to DC or Marvel. It's their go at basically creating their own superhero world. So that's what it is. And we had been told the creative team behind it is stellar. It's Mark Miller, who, of course, did the comic in 2013. He did the Kingsman franchise, the Kick-Ass franchise, Wanted. These are all, popular comics. So he's already got a lot of following in the comic book world. And so all of that, Stephen DeKnight, who did Daredevil on Netflix. We had a great team behind it, and so that was always my hope. But you never know in this business how things turn out. And clearly, you can tell by the production value they spent a great deal of money on the show. And Netflix, they're driving their own car here. I mean, they'll put it in front of their subscribers if they want to. So. Mm-hmm. We had a good idea that good places, but it really seems to have paid off. Jason, you're saying, and or Jimmy Mack, maybe you had said it's #1. It's like #1 in 81 countries right now or something. It's pretty wild.
Wow, that's incredible. Congrats. Did you go back and read Mark's comic from 2013? What was that? Image Comics?
I don't know. I don't know who put it out. Yeah.
I think so. I'm not 100% sure either.
Yeah, I'm not really a comic guy, but I will say I did read the comics. Then after I had digested them all, I actually downloaded a few other like X-Men comics just because I found myself enjoying the I enjoyed the panels, and I enjoyed going through. It's very much like a book. You've got your panel there to kind of jog the imagination, but then you're putting it together in your own head, and it's fun. So I really enjoyed it. And actually, I was going back through Jupiter's Legacy last night again, just because there's so much. I mean, there's so much going on. People think season 1 was convoluted a little bit in our show, but the whole series as a whole, the whole Miller World, Jupiter's Legacy saga, there's so much happening, and it spans like 120 years. So I was going back through just enjoying the comic again last night, actually.
I'll tell you, Matt, it's the first show, not that this means a lot. It means a lot to me, I'll tell you, but it's the first show since Homeland that my wife will stay up and watch with me and not fall asleep.
Oh, wow.
I mean, she's really, really enjoying it. We've been binging it all week long. I've only got 2 more episodes to go. Mac's been through
I love
the whole
7, by the way.
Okay.
I love 7. Yeah. 7
I haven't gotten to that one. Mac's been all the way through it.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
So we're going to try not to do anything spoilerific here. And to that end, I was reluctant. I was telling Jim earlier, I was reluctant to go and do much research on the comic because I'm enjoying it so much. I don't want to be spoiled because It's classic, Netflix, where every episode leaves you dying to see the next one. You're like, okay, one more, and next thing you know, it's 2 a.m.
It is a very bingeable show. And some of them, I think, time out at like 54 minutes. Some of them, I noticed one was like 37, which I think is really interesting because it's, that's the freedom of the streaming service, versus network, is that they kind of just are free to tell the story how they want to tell the story. And they're not framed in and boxed in by commercial breaks and all that kind of stuff, which is really great. But yeah, the show's very bingeable. You find yourself going through 2-3 episodes at a time. So I've seen a lot of comments about that, that people have gone through it in the weekend and just,
time
eat it up.
flies. Time flies when you're watching it.
Yeah, It is very bingeable. I think just because the episodes segue from one to another so seamlessly, despite the fact that it does jump around on the timeline as the story unfolds. And your story is set primarily in the late 20s, stock market crash, that sort of thing. And I'm
so jealous of his clothes. I just got to say that. Killer wardrobe.
Oh my God, you're dressed to the nines in this show.
Very, very dapper. Liz Wolfe, our costume designer, as much as people obviously rave about the super suits and all that went into them, because it's the design elements and the creative process that went into the super suits. It's easy to forego, the 29 stuff, and especially George, because my character is very big and theatrical in a way, down to like the multiple rings on the fingers and all that kind of stuff. So that was a lot of their creative input. So yeah, she deserves all the props in the world, Liz Wolfe.
And you look good as a blonde too.
It's very Zach Morris of me, huh? Like, I just need my white tennis shoes.
Yeah, right. And the comically large cell phone. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And
Black Star came down. Yeah.
It largely appears that your character is definitely an emerging one as far as I'm trying to be careful here with the spoilers.
Sure. Yeah.
But he's emerging as far as his place within this realm of superheroes. And I got the feeling that after season 1, that season 2 has to be inevitable. But I was doing some research online and I couldn't find any confirmation about a season 2, because it's essential for us to really fully know the story of your character. We have to get a season 2. Do you know anything about that?
Well, not officially. I mean, to be honest with you, it is my... I think we will, because obviously being number 1 in 81 countries helps.
Yes.
But also the amount of money that they've put into this, I feel like maybe Netflix made an investment that they do have to see through to some degree. This is just me talking. If I was an executive, I would think that you would have to, get some sort of return on your investment. I think it being the first show in the Miller World universe that Netflix has acquired, I would think that they would really want it to go at least a few seasons to potentially be a common thread between some of the other shows that they're going to be doing in that world. So I think for all those reasons, it would be my thought that we would. I've been doing this long enough to know that nothing is certain, and it's show business, I guess. Yeah. But it does feel like Netflix has a little more freedom to kind of do what they want to do. They're not so strapped by the ratings. And of course, I mean, the storyline, Jimmy Mack, like you finished it. It really feels like we're just getting started.
Yes. Yeah. We get the backstory that's necessary, but there's just so much to explore, and specifically with your character, there's
Absolutely.
No question about it, because as I say, he's an emerging character as far as where his place is within this realm of superheroes and stuff. But we do know that he does emerge within them, and it's interesting because from what I can gather, there are some parallels between George Hutchins and Anakin Skywalker. They both have maybe dark side tendencies.
It's funny. This last couple of weeks when I've been doing a lot of press, obviously a lot of people want to talk about Clone Wars. I didn't know people like Clone Wars so much.
That's funny because like all the mainstream interviews you've been doing, they're talking to you about Clone Wars. But when you come on the Star Wars show, we talk to you about Jupiter's Legacy. So
I know it's weird,
that makes
man.
all the sense in the world. Yeah.
It is funny. You know, of course they ask all their Jupiter's Legacy questions, but somehow it always steers back to Clone Wars. But
sure.
So it's funny. So I actually have been talking quite a bit about Anakin because I definitely do see the parallels. I saw somebody tweet at me the other day and they were like, how does Matt Lanter get away with playing, you know, two characters that really are the same character? You know, so it's super similar. You know, Anakin.
The duology. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, Anakin obviously is you know, raised as a hero, and I don't mean by his parents. I just mean in the saga for us as viewers. We see him as a hero, but he lives in the shades of gray. He never quite is, you know, he's not as pure as the Jedi Council would ever want him to be, and he's not evil, you know, and eventually he is perceived. I mean, you know, murdering children aside, let's just put that aside for a minute.
Set it over there.
Yeah, let's just tuck that away in its own little box. He perceives the world in a way that he is doing the right thing.
Yep.
And I think the same is, I think you're going to see that play out in a way for George in the coming seasons, hopefully. But yeah, it's also really interesting because I feel like people want to compare Anakin or Star Wars to what's going on, but I think it's kind of obvious that the themes that we're dealing with in Star Wars are just very like basic human themes. It's good and it's evil, and it's light and it's dark, and it's right thing versus wrong thing. So like, how can you not find similarities in that? I think that's the brilliant thing that George did, was he just really tapped into these basic human things that we go through.
Yep. It's primal.
So
it hits us on a level that is so core to the human experience. And
absolutely.
Right. And you're, by the way, I thought it was really cool too that you get and billing at the top of the show, which I love. And billing. But what now, again, Jim's seen the whole series, have it. I'm still in this period where we're building up to seeing you in the present time. Now I don't know if we do. I'm assuming maybe we do. There's a character that is revealed to be your son that's out there, and so it reminded me too a little bit of the build up to see Luke Skywalker in the sequel. Like you hear about him, he's legend. Everyone's telling stories about him, and then finally, I just hope you don't like chuck your cufflinks over your shoulder or something like that. It's. But
no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say. So there's a lot of is there pressure as you're looking at the scripts and you're like, wow, they're like, I really got to deliver because they're kind of building up for this moment when I appear finally. Do you sense that pressure at all?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I do actually, because even though episode 1 and 2, you don't really see George much at all, maybe a scene or two in the past. And there were a couple scenes cut, which maybe one day those scenes will come out. They're a couple of really good scenes, and I don't know why they cut them. But I'm not sure. Maybe we'll get to see him one day. But his presence is known. George's presence is known. They're constantly talking about Skyfox and him defecting from the group, and obviously he has affected Sheldon, who is Josh Duhamel's character, the Utopian, in a major way, to where 70 years later, whatever it is, 60 years later, he's still talking about it day to day and how this affected him so much. So yeah, there's a little bit of that, physically when you see him revealed. I'm trying not to give away too much here. Physically, when you see him revealed, it was like okay, how can we make this particular sequence fully dramatic? And because it is, we've talked about him, and oh my God, there he is. Right. Let's make it good. So Jason, there's you're talking about, we haven't really seen him in the present day. You just got to finish it. There's sort of a payoff, sort of isn't, but there's still a huge amount of mystery rolling into season 2, hopefully, to where we will definitely get to explore that present day storyline even more.
Yeah. And you and Josh, the scenes with you two guys together. There's some pretty intense stuff happening, and I think you guys just really had a spectacular chemistry together in those scenes.
Yeah, thanks. Josh is a great dude. He's just a normal guy, unlike a lot of people, in Hollywood. He's easy to get along with. Like we would hang out on set and we would just talk about like his tractor, like on his land in Minnesota. And I'm not trying to dumb it down. I mean that in the best way. Like it's just normal. And, I just a dude that I would like to hang out with. We actually talk about football a lot. It's just, it's refreshing in a way, to be honest. And he's a great dude, great scene partner. And I will say, I was familiar with his work, but, maybe not hugely. I haven't seen everything he's done, but he really brought it emotionally. He brought a lot of depth and this weight. He's blown me away
in this series. I thought, wow. I mean, I wasn't, I was familiar, just like anybody would be familiar with him. You see, that guy, he's kind of one of those. But I never realized, what a tremendous actor he is, and he really does. He's got the weight of this series on his shoulders. And the whole cast is phenomenal. It really feels ensemble like, even though there are, clearly, characters that get more time than others, but there is an ensemble feeling, a chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I was kind of trying to describe it to some people, like my family and stuff who've obviously not or hadn't seen it, hadn't read scripts. And I was kind of trying to explain, I'm like, well, I'm not really in the present day for quite a while. I don't know. I feel like I'm important, but I don't really know until it's all cut together. But I actually do always say, well, how there's just Game of Thrones has a lot of characters, but you don't really think less of any character that you watch. You don't really think less of the Stark sisters, even though you might not see them for 25 minutes. Much like that. That's kind of how I was thinking about things that I think as viewers, watch more and more. I hope it's going to be like that, where we're really going to be invested into every one of these characters. And when they're on the screen, we're invested. And then when the next character comes on, we're invested in that story. So hopefully that's how it
Matt,
works.
Do you shoot the series like a film? So you're shooting, you're not shooting necessarily one episode at a time. So to your point about talking to your family about describing it, was some of it kind of a mystery to you until you saw it all strung together because of the way you shoot it?
So we had all 8 scripts prior to when we started shooting. We did shoot in blocks. We shot 1 and 2 together, 3 and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 together. And we had different directors for those blocks. So 1 and 2 is Stephen DeKnight, 3 and 4, Christopher Byrne, so on and so forth. So that's kind of how we did it. And so that the 1 and 2, we might be shooting scenes from 1, the next day we're shooting scenes from 2, but we finished those. And then we moved on to the next block. So that helped a little bit as to not have 8 episodes floating around in our heads. That would be really hard and confusing. And also, there's some character progression that happens. So, to keep all that straight, they shoot in the blocks. It took us a while, though. I mean, it took us, we were there from, what was it? I don't even know, like June through December. And I know we went over by a month or two. Yeah, for 8 episodes. I mean, that's a lot. Yeah. And we were in like pre-production months before that. I think I had I sent in a tape to Stephen DeKnight, and I think that happened in January of 2019. Yeah. And then we didn't start shooting until, because they had months of like, we were working out. We were working with our trainers. They were doing body scans. They were building the suits. The suits took like, a couple of months to build each suit. I don't know if this is true, but I heard those suits are like hundreds of thousands of dollars each. Like they're a big deal. Yeah. So they needed to cast us so they could basically build the suit to they were measuring knuckles. Every single thing is measured.
Everything's measured.
Everything.
Yeah. I went in there with a cup.
Measure that.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
What is this, a TSA scan? I'm not hiding anything. Yeah, man, it was wild. So there was also a pressure to, get your body right, but actually not change too much from the scans once they started building the suits. Or else they'd be
down to the centimeter. My God.
Oh, it was specific, and so COVID has not been kind. I need to hit the gym again. So,
preacher to the choir, my friend.
Yeah,
Anthony Daniels with Star Wars, he always has to maintain a certain shape, otherwise he'll never fit in that C-3PO stuff.
Oh my gosh,
sometimes
I look at,
I'm sure,
I look at that on screen and I go like, I know there's a person in there, but how is there a person in there? Like, it's so weird. It's
there's a person in there,
thin.
all right.
So thin. Yeah, I know. I was watching. I was watching some of the Bad Batch. I don't want to shift totally here, but I was watching some of the Bad Batch and actually thinking about tech and how tech sort of compares in a way to C-3PO, but just so much cooler. I just like tech so much better. Even though I built C-3PO,
he does have kind of a 3PO vibe. I mean, his head shape and the way he's framed. I get that.
It's the D does an amazing job, but it's the voice is slightly higher register, kind of like C-3PO.
Seems a little more British than most of the clones.
Yeah, all that. So
he's got the round eyes with the goggles.
Yep. He's the intelligent one.
He's not so foppish. He's not as foppish.
Oh no, that's why I think 3PO is really annoying personally.
People don't talk about that as much as they used to. I guess that got overtaken by Ewok angst, and then of course the Jar Jar Binks meltdown of 1999. We're still feeling the fallout of that. But 3PO was open season on Goldenrod for the first few years of Star Wars existence until we had something else to pick on.
Matt, we weren't born yet. That was Mac was laying track at that point.
That's right.
You and I.
Jimmy.
We don't know what it was like.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Very good.
What was that movie like when it came out, Jimmy? What was it like?
Wow, you had popcorn back then? Yeah, we had popcorn.
Was it in color? Did they show it in color?
They did. Yeah, we had to sit through some newsreels, some World War II newsreels before the film actually started, and of course the promotions for Chesterfield cigarettes and whatever else was in front. Well, it was a very different time for going to the movies.
Matt, you brought up Bad Batch, and I wanted to talk about that because now you're not in it yet. That's just me. That's me saying, because you were quoted recently in a publication. Oh, did you get in trouble for this?
Well,
did you get a phone call?
I didn't get a phone call, and I'm not in trouble. No, but there were some inquiries as to what.
Hey, come on! All you said was, "Look, I never put Anakin Skywalker down. It's a part of me, and there's projects coming up." I mean, my God, everyone knows there, or it could at least assume that there are projects coming up. But
so that's what's. I don't want to talk about it much, but that was going on in my head. Is that there's always things. There's always video games. There's always this, always that.
Right.
I never really drop Anakin. That's kind of what I said. That's
what we took it as. However, with the Bad Batch being such a continuation of the Clone Wars visually,
sure.
Is it? I would imagine it'd be like if you were on a TV show and they killed off your character, and now you're watching it and you're seeing, some of your friends and doing it without you. Did you get that kind of sense when you were watching the Bad Batch? Did it feel like, hey, something's missing? Like, I should be in this thing. I mean,
the honest answer is yeah. But I realize that it's a different show. And so it's, I don't know. I mean, it's sort of like graduating in a way. And then you look back and maybe some of your neighborhood friends are a year younger than you and still in high school and they're doing their thing. Mm-hmm, but you have to move on with yours and that's not your story anymore.
Yeah.
So sure. Yeah. I mean, there's a bit of that, but at the same time, I mean, I will say, like, I'm just so happy for D. I mean, D is just so amazing. He just deserves everything, and you know, and you know, I guess you know, with the fandom of the Clone Wars, I do feel like the voice actors, you know, and with you guys really giving us so much credit and everything for the production, you know, I've seen a lot of articles now interviewing D and talking about D, and I think that's awesome. I think that's awesome that the voice actors are really, you know, getting some recognition for helping bring these characters to life. And man, I just think he's so talented, and so it's pretty awesome. But I will also say that you know, it feels spin-offy in a way, and I don't mean that in a negative sense.
No.
So it's kind of like it doesn't really feel like the Jedi Star Wars world to me. Granted, I've only seen about half of that first episode, guys, so I don't know what happens. But you know, it's a very specific world that they're in, so it sort of doesn't feel the same, even though it is. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of how that's our response to it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
As fans.
Yeah, I think it's like slightly jarring. Like, I'm watching Star Wars, but I'm not really watching anything about Jedi. So, like, is it really how's it Star Wars? You know, it's one of those things too. So,
well, I know Jedi left thanks to you, by the way. I mean, you only have yourself to blame.
And that's the other thing, though. How would Anakin ever fit in? I mean, by halfway through that first episode, he would be Vader, right? So
yeah, right.
I mean, Anakin wouldn't really be part of it unless there's
flashbacks are always good. Hallucinations. There's got to be there's got to be. I don't know. You know, they see some funny mushrooms. These Bad Batchers. You never know what might happen. But I will say that your presence or the presence of your character, and of course of Vader, is felt. You know, he's there, and that's cool. You know, as a fan, that's cool to know that we're now living in a world or watching it unfold where Vader is there. We've been calling him Fresh Vader. Jimmy Mack said you can still smell the
sizzle.
Like his plastics are still off gassing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, get the barbecue sauce. Yeah, he smells. It's 50% barbecue, 50% formaldehyde.
Oh, that's wrong.
Imagine that.
Nobody talks about that. That's kind of an unpleasant combination.
That's just wrong.
It's too soon. It's too fresh.
It is too soon. He's probably still a little sore. You know, he's a little sore.
Yeah, I know. But you know, when Anakin Skywalker killed those kids, it's kind of like bet was off. You know, all bets were off for him.
Now here's a thought. I'm just throwing this out, so free of charge to those of you writing the Bad Batch, but I think that if you heard Vader's inner monologue, he would sound like Anakin. Like if he was talking to himself.
They brought you back already to voice Anakin in his Vader state in Star Wars Rebels Season 2.
They did. They did.
The foundation has already been set.
Well, you're right, but I think the specifically, you know, what we saw is when Vader's mask was ripped off. And so I think the visuals what really helped, you know, them put my voice in there with James Earl Jones. But if it's just the mask and it's intact, I don't know that you would hear Anakin. I think it might be just
if he's in a meditation chamber. He's in a meditation chamber saying, I'm going to get this Bad Batch if I, you know.
He should be the voice of Vader in the meditation chamber. I don't know. By the look on Matt's face, I'm thinking maybe we're not that far off. I don't.
Well, no, I'm just maybe Anakin is like the voice of reason. Maybe every now and then we hear Vader's voice of reason, and it's Anakin going like, "What are you doing, man?"
Yeah,
and it's James Earl Jones going like, "I'm gonna do this." You know, that's terrible, James Earl Jones. But you get it. You get it.
Yes, yes, the devil and the angel on the arm.
Yeah, little Anakin pops up, little Annie on the shoulder.
What are you doing, man? Come on.
Yeah.
You can't wipe out more Jedi? Yeah. Are you crazy?
Yeah.
No.
Would Shmi be proud of you?
Do it.
What
would Shmi say?
Yeah, what would Shmi do?
Say?
How many people
Think about Watto?
How many
WWSD.
How many people get to say that, Matt, what you just said? You know, when they mixed my voice with James Earl Jones, That's a pretty.
I know.
Cool, that's
I said it so
thing,
casually, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You
James
did.
Earl Jones, like one of the most iconic voices of all time. But you have played complex characters before. And don't take this the wrong way, but for someone who is so ridiculously nice looking, you do play, you play these bad guys. And it reminded me of something that I had heard. They said, not to get all religious, but something that I've heard is like, they talk about how the devil was often portrayed as actually something quite beautiful to look at, quite handsome.
What are you getting at here? What are you saying?
I'm just saying that.
I was wondering the same thing
what is your
myself.
end game?
The end
What road
game
are we going down here?
No,
what are you calling me, evil?
No, not at all. Not at all. What I mean is, you don't look like the kind of actor that is cast as villains, yet you tend to get cast in those. Now you're in that role, right? But as you were saying, these are not villains that necessarily see themselves as villains in their own story. I'm just thinking, if I'm going to create a super villain, Matt Lanter is not necessarily the guy that I look at, but it works is kind of what I'm getting at.
Sure. Okay. Well, I think that you're right. I mean, I understand that. You don't traditionally. Your villains are always deformed faces, and
right.
But I do think that audiences nowadays they're smarter, and I think they expect more. I think back in when we're seeing like Batman and Penguin, it's good is good and bad is bad, and like let's fight and let's have the movie. But now audiences really look for a much more detailed, so much more depth, even in their villains. And so that's why you've got, these origin stories like Joker and stuff like that. And I don't know. I mean, maybe it's kind of a smart thing well, first of all, any good villain, as you guys know, I think any good villain thinks they're justified. Yeah. And that's what kind of. But
do you like playing bad guys, or I
do. It's kind of cliche to say the bad guys have more fun, I guess, but I think that there is some more chance to kind of take chances in your acting, because I think sometimes when you are the villain, people excuse or maybe even expect a little more flair to the performance in a way. So I think maybe in that regard, it can kind of be fun because you can kind of take risks and chances as an actor. That might be perceived as interesting, but if you're just the straight and narrow hero, they're kind of like, what is that? Like, I don't know if I'm being clear on that or not, but
no, you are. And I think you're expressing something a lot of actors would say as well. I mean, I think there's just more meat on the bone when you're playing a villain, because there is that duality of the characters where they think they're doing something for the greater good, but they're, essentially evil. And I think that presents a lot of compelling opportunities for an actor.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think that, if you're villainous, I think there's just more layers that are built in, because then you got to figure out, well, why is he villainous? And like, was he good at one time? What made him be villainous? What's going on in his head while he's doing these villainous things? But if you're just playing the straight and narrow hero, you kind of have to dig to try to find out, what's making him tick and what makes him interesting. And often well-written characters, that's there and it's easy, but sometimes it's not,
Another connection between what I'm seeing in Jupiter's Legacy and in Star Wars is the adherence of the code, and you talked about gray area before, and there's no gray area. You're good, you're bad, and I mean, there's a moment where Josh's character, the Utopian, his son does something that really just changes the whole trajectory of the series and really turns his world upside down. And the Jedi are very much that way. So it's interesting to see a superhero story incorporate some, like, at what point is being good, in air quotes, a liability, and when do you have to lower yourself to, the enemy that you're facing? It's very, very compelling stuff.
It is, and it really does align pretty perfectly with the council. I mean, the council is sort of the end all be all. You know, so you do these things, you stick by it, and you're not a good Jedi if you don't. And you know, it's sort of the same thing.
Yeah, because there's definitely a code of ethics. With the heroes in Jupiter's Legacy, and they do discuss that whether it's right because it's right for you, or if it's right for the greater good, and that's something that I find very interesting, and that's something that I could see Anakin Skywalker struggling with as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, just paralleling, you know, George to Anakin, I think Anakin saw those shades of gray and, you know, eventually sees the code as this, things need to change, and the Jedi Council's not changing, and the world is changing, and the, you know, the galaxy is changing, much like the world is changing in Jupiter's Legacy. And so I see both of those characters like struggling to actually be just, but the code or the Jedi Council is holding them back from actually serving the people, you know. So I actually sort of see George as kind of a people's hero, like I do Anakin. I mean, until he, of course, you know, goes full Darth Vader, is kind of the hero to the people.
Yeah.
Of course, we're talking to your character George from Jupiter's Legacy, not George Lucas, as many of our listeners are accustomed to hearing us refer to as the singular George.
I could say Skyfox. Yeah, I could say, Well, there's George, my character, and then there's the maker, you know. So
the maker. Hallowed be thy name. Actually, that was something that was interesting too. I don't think I have ever seen a scene in a superhero film or a comic book, and like you, I'm not a huge comic book reader, but of superheroes sitting around a dining room table and praying, you know, before a meal. So the inclusion of a god in the way that we think of God in a superhero universe is also very, very interesting. And it seems to be that's where some of the code is anchored in traditional faith.
Yeah, you're right. And, you know, it's funny, I really haven't had any questions about that specifically, but that is really interesting that, you know, even though they're bestowed these powers in a way, and, you know, you'll get there eventually when you finish the series, but you'll kind of see how they come about. But then to also in that same world know that there is a God and who they pray to and who they get their salvation from, that is really really interesting. And yeah, I mean, obviously I think that's the morals and the ethics that Josh Duhamel's character you know, kind of lives by are biblical
absolutely
ethics, you know?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, traditional, kind of 10 Commandments sort of things.
Right.
And it's fun. It's great to see that presented in something that isn't mocking it, you know, if I can go there, because it doesn't. It takes it quite seriously and gives it, I think, real validity.
Absolutely. And something I'm just spitballing here actually for the first time. Maybe there's parallels between you know, the code and what the old-fashioned ways of doing things. You could probably find those themes in Christianity. There are, you know, maybe there are some Christians that think there's, you know, the Bible says one thing only, and then you might have another group of people that's going, well, that doesn't really include everybody, and, you know, what does that mean? You know, because Jesus was inclusive, and, you know, so yeah, I mean, really, if you kind of want to go there, it's there, and it's really, well, again, it's human themes, it's human things that we deal with, and you know,
and family themes too, because that scene in specific, I mean, sure, they were all superheroes, they all had superpowers, but they were all a family, a legitimate. They were all connected by blood, and so they were just maintaining family traditions as well, even despite the fact they were all blessed with these superhero abilities. So yeah, that wow, great thing to bring up there, Jason. That was it
was the Duck Dynasty sequence, you know. You ever seen that show? Duck Dynasty. every episode they pray together, and it's like how it ends. Right. That's what we called it, the Duck Dynasty sequence.
Hey, Matt, how thrilled were you to see Luke Skywalker show up in the final episode of The Mandalorian Season 2?
I haven't seen the second season.
You son of a... See, I knew
I was busy making
risk.
Big TV shows.
He's busy, but all right. Well, spoiler alert.
Andy's a dad. Andy's a husband. All that stuff. Yeah. But come on, man. We know that half of making movies is sitting around. You tell me you don't have an iPhone? You can sit there and binge little Mando?
No. I don't want to watch it on my iPhone. That's not how it's meant to be watched.
That's true.
I mean, I want to watch it on my screen with my sound system. And so many times, like my wife and I, after we finally get the kid down, which, by the way, she goes to bed really late, so I don't have much time at night.
Right.
Usually
I hear you.
My wife is like, well, I want to stay down here and I want to watch this. And, we she liked the first season. I'm actually slightly embarrassed because I'm like so proud of Dave for doing The Mandalorian, but I haven't seen it. And then I guess I kind of started to fall behind. And then I was like, well, I don't want to jump in now. So I just tried to ignore everything.
And Jimmy Mac just blew it. Just blew it. I'm sure you'd never heard that. And by the way, for those of you who follow Matt on social media, you'll see his TV room is nothing but like one giant couch with an enormous TV, like this fold. Yeah. Is that what you got still going on? This big fold out?
We call it Mega Couch. So it's a big, huge U shape, and I have a big, 110-inch screen that comes down, but what I found with the projector, as great as it is, it's not great for things like The Mandalorian and Jupiter's Legacy, where you want to watch it in this brilliant, bold, beautiful colors and saturation. And so I put up like an 85-inch TV behind the screen, and my wife didn't understand why I needed to do that.
I'm so sorry. It's just terrible.
She was like, I don't get it. You have a screen. Why would you put up? And I'm like, you don't get it.
It's a guy thing. It's totally a guy. Yeah. I have a projector and a screen on my porch so that I can sit outside at night and smoke a cigar and have a drink and watch TV. And my wife doesn't get it. I don't understand. We have this nice TV and what do you need that for? I'm like, you just don't.
Jimmy, I used to listen to, was it called Snide Remarks when you guys were doing it?
Yeah, Snyder Remarks. It's coming back, from what I've been told.
From what you've been told. Always the last to know.
This summer, me and Wendy Snyder, we're going to start podcasting again.
I loved listening to that. And speaking of outdoors, I liked the episodes when you guys were outdoors. I lived vicariously. I was like, I'm just imagining myself sitting in a suburb of Chicago drinking a wine and listening to the crickets. I really enjoyed it.
The crickets. Yeah, that was our audience, the crickets. And they were responding appropriately. But, living
I liked
vicariously.
It, man. I liked it.
Living vicariously through our show is probably best for your liver. So good for you. But yeah, look for that. That is coming back. I don't think we've really talked about it. But Snyder Remarks is coming back this summer. Like, again, as I said, from what I've been told. So
I love it.
I'm looking forward to that. There was a sequence in Jupiter's Legacy that has nothing to do with superheroes. It has nothing to do with really anything we've talked about other than you. It's the breakfast moment. When he's having breakfast by himself, and he gets served up one of those eggs in that little special cup to hold the egg. And I was watching you as you you'd even think about it. You just sort of looked away and you went into it as if you've had eggs prepared that way 1,000 times. And I know it was a common breakfast back in that time period in the late 20s, early 30s. People were eating eggs like that all the time. But I thought to myself, Jim, you've never had an egg served to you like that for breakfast. Mm-hmm. And so how was it?
Not bad. I actually like my eggs like a little bit in between.
Like an omelet or scrambled or over easy?
Ish. It's kind of a soft boiled ish.
Soft boiled, okay.
I'm a big fan of eggs Benedict, which is kind of a little bit more of a poached egg.
Yeah, I love that with the Canadian bacon, delicious.
Yeah. So it was kind of that consistency. But I will say I've seen that before. I did a show called Commander in Chief years ago, with Donald Sutherland. And I specifically remember a scene where he was eating an egg like that. And I think it stood out to me too, because I had never seen that. I think it's just something that I don't know, rich politicians do. Yeah.
Well, I was curious, were there really 100 eggs there on set, Matt, or were they CGI eggs?
No. That was real. That was real.
They really had 100 eggs laid out.
It was quite, kind of intimidating as an actor in a way, because we were in this massive, that was some mansion that was outside of Toronto. And, you saw the scope of the room. It was just massive. Yeah. And, it's just kind of intimidating when you're in this huge room and all eyes, all cameras are on you and you alone. Wow. And, that's, I guess, where you just kind of get in your own head and you do your thing as the character. But yeah, those were all real. And the poor props people, they worked really hard that evening just to, put everything correctly. And, and that was a really, really cool, memorable standout scene. I got a lot of pictures on my phone of that one. And I'm getting a lot of tweets about that. People tweeted me a bunch of egg emojis just over and over and over.
Now you're the egg guy. But it does do a lot to establish George's character in the sense that he's kind of a lonely guy. He doesn't have a family. His parents are gone. And it's like your best friend is not your best friend, but your friend. Your father is your butler. It's like
absolutely, yeah,
Richie Rich with no family.
No, that's right. I think that I saw character as, he's a little big, and like kind of the way he moves, and he's got a little bit of that flair to him, slightly ambiguous in a way. And I thought that was interesting because, when you're that rich and you don't really have anything you need to do, everything just sort of is a production, like what else are you going to do other than make your life a theater production? And so I kind of saw him as just big because why the hell not? Right. And so that I kind of added some of that flair in there. And, it seems to be, people seem to be responding really positively to that. But I also think that, touching on what you said, Jason, is that I think that theatrical bigness is actually there to cover what's going on inside. That's the very small hurt that he's got, the small feeling that he's got, just stemming from his loneliness and his hurt on the inside. I think no better way to cover that up than going even bigger
with flamboyance. And there's a really great scene when you're talking to the Utopian as Sheldon, and you finally open up and you look over and he's asleep. Like you're about to tell him, it was just amazing. So I mean, it's
Sheldon had his own problems to deal with.
Well, true, nothing like seeing dead relatives to spoil a good time. But it made me feel bad because like even your best friend isn't there for you in the moment of ultimate vulnerability. And
that's funny. My mom texted me and said the same thing, but I think what's great about that
I think a lot like a mom, I guess.
Yeah.
You and my mom should hang out.
He listens to Manilow.
What I like about that, though, is it shows George's, George Hutchins, Jupiter's Legacy. It shows his loyalty to his friend. I think that, he came away from that. Sheldon fell asleep, but I think probably what was going on in his head is he hates to reminisce on those feelings that he harbors, but at the same time, I think he was happy that he could calm and relax his friend to the point of just, settling down for a minute. And I'm sure that brought him a lot of comfort too, because I think that, again, not having much in his life as far as, family and kind of matters of the heart, I think that he probably holds that relationship with Sheldon very dear because Sheldon is his family. Yeah. And even Walter to a degree. And there's a major friction with them. But
right. Your scenes with him are real great. You guys have that a real good I guess it's sort of anti-chemistry. You have a good chemistry of sort of needling each other and
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. As we were doing a lot of interviews together this past week and a half, I think his name is Ben Daniels is the actor, fantastic guy. we kind of started realizing we'd never vocalized this with each other before, but that George and Walter are actually somewhat similar characters on opposite ends of the spectrum. Walter is a very, he's a very kind of lonely. He feels like no one's ever in his corner. No one listens to him. He's the black sheep. He doesn't fit in. He's not like a cool guy like Sheldon and George. I think on the other end of the spectrum, George feels like he doesn't fit in. He's not part of the family. He's never going to be part of the family. He can't have that connection he was born that way. He doesn't have no one there to listen to him. I mean, he talks in that scene to Sheldon, and he's talking about, I have Cuthbert, but he's hardly a scintillating conversationalist. He's basically saying he's lonely. He's got no one to talk to. He's an outcast. He's on the outside. He wants the same thing. I think he wants that same belonging that Walter wants.
And they're both clinging to Sheldon.
I think that George kind of needles at him and picks at him because maybe he sees that as the weakness in himself. That Walter, on the surface, Walter is weak, and I think maybe George is picking on that because he sees that weakness, and he, it's like a part of himself that he doesn't want to come out. Yeah. And so maybe he's kind of a bully in that sense. He, like a traditional bully does. You pick on someone because you feel insecure. So really interesting things here. And Ben and I were kind of figuring all that out, going, oh my God, we're like almost mirrored images of each other in a way.
Just imagine how good season 2 is going to be after you figure all this stuff out.
Season 2 is going to be spectacular. And I'm pretty excited to learn that Netflix is really approaching this as a new franchise. I don't think I realized that. Here I am holding out for season 2, and it sounds like there's going to be a lot more from this incredible world.
I hope so. I don't know. At one point, I was told that the Netflix models, they take about 30 days, and they sort of assess the views and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I truthfully don't know the answer to that. I really hope so. It would be my opinion that I think we would, at least for another season.
Big
just
splash.
For all those reasons.
It made such a big splash.
A
lot of eyes are on the show, and we recommend our listeners get their eyes on the show as well. Yes. You're hearing us talk about all of these rich characters and this incredible world building going on here. Yeah. And soft eggs. I mean, the show has everything. So, and Matt Lanter, of course. So and Jimmy, that's why I want people to support it.
Well, and I can say that also. I think if you're a fan of Star Wars, obviously it's a Star Wars podcast, but there are a lot of similarities to the Star Wars universe. Jason, I had sent you that link that Mark Miller, the creator, was talking about. He was very inspired by Carrie Fisher's memoirs, and how she kind of was saying, how could I ever live up to Debbie Reynolds, my mom, and my dad, Eddie Fisher, and I think Mark Miller had mentioned separation came from that as well, going, how do you live up to your parents that are so famous, and how can you be Superman's kid? So that's a tie-in right there. And then I also had read something from Mark that he very much saw this world as kind of a Star Wars opportunity here that Jimmy Mack, you're talking about. There's a world to be built out, and obviously us Star Wars fans, we love to escape into this world. I think it's one of the reasons we all love it, because it's just an endless possibility of escapism and stories and characters. Yes, and that's that's certainly there for Miller World here.
And it's so important, for stories to, I think, one, to sort of have this ideal or present this ideal for us to aspire to. It's some people consider that, some of the cool kids might consider that old fashioned, but I still think that that's some of the most important storytelling that we can have.
It's something we can all relate to. Every single one of us can relate in some way, Yeah. I think because we all, whether we're good or bad or whatever, we all want to be better. We all, I think, want to do good, and it's totally relatable for everybody. And whether, even if you don't like superhero stuff, actually my dad was like, I wanted to see more like fighting and action. And I was like, well, that's the beauty in it, Dad. Like, it's there, but if you like This Is Us and that's your thing, that's kind of there too.
Yes.
So
Sure. Yeah, it's the other side of, I mean, there's plenty of, for that sort of thing. I mean, not taking away anything from the Marvel movies. They're wonderful, but, a lot of times some of them feel like just one big action sequence after another. And it's like, hello, can we have some character going on here?
Yeah, Jupiter's Legacy does dive into the reality of these human beings who find themselves with these tremendous powers and how they got there as human beings, which
absolutely
I find is fascinating.
I do too. I think it's really cool that we get to know these people before they're superhuman.
Right.
So they actually have the perspective, and that's another thing that differs from the next generation in the show than from the originals, is that they have the perspective of just being just human. And so that's kind of cool too. And that's something we obviously don't get in Superman, something like that, where he just kind of is, but so yeah.
Do you think there's gonna be any merchandising tie-ins? Can we maybe get a statue of you or something?
I need a Skyfox action figure.
Yeah. Me too, man. Me too. I hope so. I do know that at one point when we were shooting, I do know there were, the Power B, I know they were having meetings about merchandising. So I don't know if that could be standard procedure for these types of shows. I really have no idea, but I hope so. I would love to have a
By
Skyfox,
the way, speaking of merchandising, our pal Paul Bateman sent some images. I don't know if you've seen this thing, but Matt, I think it's Hot Toys or Sideshow. I get them confused, but one of the
Sideshow.
It was Sideshow Collectibles has put out or is putting out a 12-inch animated style Anakin Skywalker figure that is just like he walked right off of the cell or whatever they make these things on now. It's incredible.
I think I did see a picture of that actually, and I think James Arnold Taylor actually brought it to my attention. James, by the way, lives like the neighborhood behind me. It's weird.
Amazing!
Like, great. You guys are all living in Nashville now. It's
hilarious. I could literally walk to his house.
That's incredible. Yeah, because there's an Obi-Wan as well.
Yes. And he actually got in touch with them, and I think actually somebody from Sideshow emailed me a couple days ago. I got to get back to them, but
you
hopefully
need one of those. You got to get one. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely! Yeah. I need one of those for sure. Yeah, it looked amazing.
Yeah, it's so cool because that style is it's for Star Wars fans now, especially. It's so iconic, and it's great to see merchandise in that style again.
Right.
Speaking of iconic, we've spoken to you, I don't know how many dozens of times over the years, but it never gets old to me that just I sit back, I listen, and I hear nothing but Anakin. And James Arnold Taylor is doing a Ewan McGregor impersonation. TC was clearly channeling Samuel L. Jackson. We know Corey Burton is doing his damn bestest Christopher Lee impersonation. But in your case, I don't note a Hayden Christensen impersonation. I hear you through and through in your ability to bring Anakin to life. Did they ever coach you in that regard? Did they ever say, be more Matt or be more Hayden or be less Matt? Anything like that?
No. I was never given the instruction to be a little bit more like Hayden. Definitely not in like vocal quality or tone or anything like that. Sometimes I would touch on his cadence because I feel like the cadence is a very character thing. But not a sound-alike thing in any way. And I know you guys know this, but I had met with George before we started recording, and Dave, and they had talked to me through the difference in the characters and what we know as Anakin and kind of what we want to get to know as Anakin, and the want to get to know Anakin was a much more heroic, charismatic, witty kind of guy, and so I really felt the freedom to just be me in that character and what I brought to it. When I auditioned for it, Dave, I remember Dave in the room just telling me, "Hey, do you know Han Solo and do you know Luke Skywalker?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." And he goes, "Just do like a combination of those two and just let me see what you come up with." And so that was my gut response was kind of the hero Luke, but the swagger of Han Solo. And that's kind of where it came from.
I think you nailed it, my friend.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, did you see, though, this thing's been floating around on the internet. Hayden did some sort of interview and seemed like he had a bit of a deeper register. I think he was imitating somebody. He was telling a story, and it came out much deeper, and it was floating around on my Twitter feed. Someone saying, like, Hayden doing, I don't think he was
Hayden's doing Matt Lanter.
Yeah, what's going on here?
He's doing the Matt Lanter vocal warm-up, getting ready for shooting Kenobi. He's like, God, if I come out on that show and don't sound like that Matt Lanter guy, everyone's going to say I'm a phony.
Yeah.
It's not Anakin.
Hayden, can you do a little bit of Matt Lanter in there? I don't think they're saying that, but
I would love it if they do. I would love it if they do.
Deborah Chow pulls him aside. Can you tone down the Hayden Christensen just a little bit? Find your inner Matt Lanter, please.
Oh my gosh.
Well, they didn't really teach that at Juilliard. Just find it.
Don't even say that, because then it's gonna be some kind of weird headline that I'm telling you know.
Hey, listen, you have to worry more about the Matt Lanter hasn't seen season 2 of The Mandalorian yet. Those are going to be the headlines after this young man.
I know. I gotta see it, but but anyway,
we
I don't
know
mean
that
to scold you, Matt. I don't mean to scold.
We know
you're very busy.
You're a husband and a father. We know you got a family to hang out with, and Matt, I mean, it's just thank you for being a friend of this show for so many years, and we couldn't be more proud of you, more happy for you. Phenomenal. So again, thank you
guys so much. Yeah, thank you. I always say it. When I do interviews and stuff, I always tell people that the Star Wars fandom is so special to me after all these years, and I mean, not just as like a creator of Star Wars, but I really feel, and I know you guys feel this too, is like, when we're all geeks of Star Wars and we're in this fandom, we feel like family together.
Yeah.
And, I say, like, I'm driving down the street and I see somebody with a Star Wars bumper sticker, and I'm like, I want to talk to them.
Yeah.
And I know you guys have that same feeling, because we all feel like we're this cool bonded family, and it's so special. And, you guys are really, in some ways, the patriarch of this Star Wars fandom, and have been for years, since we've been doing these conventions and things like that. And just listening to your show, for many years ago, I've gotten such a deeper appreciation for the fandom and the world, aside from just voicing a character. So thank you guys for that, and you're a big part of that for me. So
that's very kind. I'm so touched that you said that. Thank you so much, man. You're
absolutely.
You're the best. And we love the Clone Wars cast and crew. I don't think I've ever been around anything singular production that had just such cream of the
great
crop
people,
individuals. Yeah.
Great people. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Congratulations. And as there's more news about Jupiter's Legacy or any project you're associated with, do you have anything else that you want to mention that's coming up other than the #1 show on Netflix?
And your return as Anakin Skywalker, that's pending, of course.
Jeez.
I had to say that.
I don't want another email. So no, not really. I've got a movie that I'm slated to do in Atlanta soon. Can't really say much about it. But that, and then there's some voiceover things, but like you said, I'm pretty busy right now with the #1 show. So sounds super cocky, but I mean,
you earned it. You earned it, man.
Might as well enjoy it.
Yes.
All right, but have a safe trip up this way, and best to Angela and the little one, and take care, man. And like I said, anytime you have something you want to tell our listeners about, we'd be more than happy to have you.
Okay, guys. Great chatting as always.
Welcome.
I'll see you next time.
All right.
Thanks,
Take care,
Matt.
bud. Matt Lanter, ladies and gentlemen.